They all three needed a very different approach, how we accomplish things.
A really great experience to be able to let the kids roam a little bit.
Play in the dirt.
Yeah, just go have fun.
If you can somehow get each one of your children to think that they're the favorite, then you've won.
You give them two choices. It's just that there's one obvious good one and one obvious bad one. You're only as happy as your saddest child.
I wish I held my babies more because they don't stay babies very long.
I said, I promise I will never do that again. If you promise you will never do it again. Find something that's specific to you and your child's relationship. Nothing can replace the dad.
Tell us who you are.
I'm Howard Rouse.
And I'm Gail Rouse. Our oldest is a girl, and she's now 25 years old. 2 years and 9 days after she was born, we had a set of twins, a boy and a girl. So that completed our family.
Those were busy times, I imagine.
Yeah.
They were. It took us 10 years to get the first ones. We were married for a little while before the kids came along.
Okay. Tell me about that. I imagine that helped strengthen y'all's relationship.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I look at it, I think it was really good for us. I mean, we just had trouble conceiving. We had to go through IVF to actually have all three of our kids. We have a pretty good batting average. We went 3 for 2. So we got 3 kids and 2 down. So extremely blessed on that front. Not really, we didn't really wait for 10 years. We probably worked for 9 years of that 10 years to try to have kids. But it allowed us to, kind of get a little bit more set financially. We had some great experiences as a couple before we ever had kids. We lived overseas for a year in Tokyo before we had kids. That was actually a really good bonding experience for us. Overall, I mean, we wish we'd have had them earlier, but it turned out actually to be good.
I imagine you guys probably talked about having children for a lot of those years. You said you probably were trying for 9. I imagine by the time they got here, you had some ideas on how it would go, like ideas for parenting or things that you wanted to put into place. Maybe you were a little more prepared than most.
When we did live overseas, we did a lot of babysitting for expat American families.
We learned how to parent on other people's children.
That's a good start.
Different kind of kids, some better than others. And
they were all pretty good kids.
They were all pretty good kids, but some were definitely more challenging. We did just about every age group from kind of toddlers on up through teenagers.
We kind of got the good cop, bad cop thing down with somebody else's experience. So she could be the good cop and, if they weren't really responding to that, wait till Howie gets home. And then I would have to drop the hammer. But it was actually good for us to see kind of what works or what doesn't, or geez, that was really stupid. But it was a lot of fun. We got to hang out with a lot of really cool kids and learn from them and learn from their parents. And so it was great.
Cool. So going into parenthood, were there things that you learned from that you wanted to apply to your parenting?
I grew up in a family of 3 boys. And that's all I ever knew. So it was kind of a little more rough and tumble, if you would. And, it's kind of like, probably offend people, but it's kind of like raising dogs. If the dog does something you don't like, you give it a little swat on behind, say, don't do it again. And the dog's like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I kind of learned, even the boys we babysat over there, of course, I didn't swat them on the rear end or anything, but I would be a little bit harder on them. But then they would learn, go, okay, don't make him mad. He'll come in and, kind of set you straight. But the thing I learned is that doesn't work on girls too much, which was new.
It's a little different.
Total news to me. It's like boys are like dogs, girls are like cats. You gotta finesse them a lot more, which was eye-opening for me. My interactions with young ladies was extremely limited.
Yeah, you got a couple that you had to practice
and that's
on.
where I saw the genius in this lady, because she could understand them and talk to them, and I'd be like, I don't get it. They don't respond to my straightforward approaches. So it was good. She was the girl whisperer.
Good. We come in pairs. I think that's part of the divine plan, right?
Right.
Where did you guys raise your family? Did you move a lot?
No, we didn't actually.
Not after you had kids. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I didn't really move that much.
We started out after college, our married life in Seattle. A job brought us to Texas 27 years ago, and here we are.
Yeah.
We just moved across town just before our kids even started school. We moved. We were in one of the very compact neighborhoods and wanted a little bit of space for our kids to run around. So when they were 4 and 2, we moved out to where we are now and have about a smaller house on a lot bigger lot so they could run around outside and play.
We traded a house for land, and it was worth every sacrifice in house was totally made up for with land.
I listened to a podcast with Sister Corden, and her dad was a dentist, but they bought like a 75-acre hobby farm. And people would ask him, like, what are you going to raise out there? Chickens, pigs, cows? And he's like, I'm going to raise children.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. I'm gonna
Yes.
raise kids.
We did
Yeah.
throw in some chickens later on, but we
I think that's good. Yes. Yes.
And the neighbors
I
had
love that.
horses, so the kids got to interact with larger animals, and it was just really a really great experience to be able to let the kids roam a little bit, just turn them loose,
play in the dirt.
yeah,
Yes.
swim in
Yes.
flooded ditches, whatever. You
Yeah.
all the garbage that's floating around that, whatever. Just go have fun.
It's immunities, right? Immunities. What do you guys, looking back on your parenting, what do you feel like was your greatest strength in parenting?
My amazing good looks and personality. Yeah.
I like it.
What do you think? You go first. I'll let you.
That's a really hard question. Our kids have 3 very, very distinct personalities. And I think for me, I don't know if it was a superpower or not, but it was to parent each of them individually. We had family rules and things and expectations, but they all 3 needed a very different approach to how we accomplish things, I guess. For me, it was figuring out their personalities. And I think I figured it out a little earlier than you did just because of raising them from tiny little babies. He doesn't like the little newborns.
I'm
but-
not a newborn guy.
They don't give you a lot back.
But
Yeah.
the personalities came out from day one. And I think just figuring out the needs of the 3 individuals rather than just applying one size fits all type of parenting, I think.
I think one thing that was very advantageous was we had really good parents, both of us. 2-parent households, and once again, they weren't perfect, just like us. But I think Gail and I had a really good example set for us of what parents should be, and we're able to contrast that with friends that maybe didn't have the same blessing that we did in having a really stable family. And I think both of us kind of took what our parents gave us and brought it into our kids. And I think it was consistency. This is right, this is wrong. If you do X, you will get Y. Be very clear on kind of acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior, and then the outcomes of each of those behaviors. Just, it's A and it's B. Once in a while there's a C thrown in. And if you do any of those 3, you will get the X, Y, Z back. I think that was really good because our kids never wondered what the outcomes of their choices were going to be. And so we were always really, really clear in that. Even when we were in church, in sacrament meeting, and our kids would, because we had 3 kids under 2.5 years old. I mean, we had a little pack going. Whenever they would start to act up, you have 2 choices. You can either be on the bench here, be quiet and roam, in your little area here and have some freedom within sacrament and be quiet and listen as much as you can. Or option B is you go to the hallway and I sit with you in a chair and I keep you in my arms and you don't move. You go into lockdown. So you give them 2 choices. It's just there's one obvious good one and one obvious bad one. And so once in a while they'd choose the bad one. And that's okay. I'd go sit in the hallway with them and kind of just hold them. I didn't reward them with running free in the hall and get to run around the street and have fun. It was very unpleasant in the hall because you just sat on Dad's lap.
That's 100% what Chris would do when our kids were toddlers. I love that.
And the other thing we did too, from the first time we ever brought the twins to church, we walked in and sat right on the second row of the middle section of the chapel. And I don't know if that's because that's where we kind of had enough room for all the seats and paraphernalia that came with us, but we sat in the front, and we never sat on the back row because that's where usually the rowdier kids were. And, so they learned from the get-go where the good seats were and what you had to do to be able to stay in there. And
I never worked really well, but,
Yeah.
but it wasn't just in we would do that to, you can choose A or B. And if you choose B, which is the wrong choice, you get these consequences, and consequences can be good or bad. You earn the reward that you get.
I think that is so important. I think just consistency itself is key. Like they need to know that you will follow through. Otherwise, they're not going to listen.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to follow through sometimes. Sometimes I give consequences that I don't actually want to follow through on. It sounds like it'll really get the job done, but it's important to set reasonable consequences and follow through when you say you're going to follow through.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that. I really resonate with that. Let's see. You talked about friends. You talked about growing up and how your home lives kind of played a part in the way that you guys parent and your home is. But then you mentioned how friends were kind of a factor as you were kids. Talk to me about how friends were a factor for your children's upbringing. Like, what kind of influence did friends have on parenting your children?
I can remember one particular instance. I drove a big car, so I was carpooling a lot. We had another child in the car, and I don't remember what she said, but she said something very unkind to one of my children. And I immediately responded and I said, that's not a nice thing to say. And we don't talk like that in my car when we're driving around town. And I think it has set a pretty good precedence for my kids. They knew that I was going to address it right then and there, and that I tried to not allow them to talk mean to each other, but I also wouldn't allow them to talk mean to their friends or their friends to talk mean to them. That child is still somewhat around in the area, and I've seen her, and we're friends. It didn't put anything on. That was probably 20 years ago, or maybe not that long, maybe 15 years ago. And she knew where we stood, and my kids knew where I stood. And so, that was kind of a negative experience, I guess, of the talking bad, but our kids are really good at picking good friends.
Our kids had really good friends, and our kids, the twins, had a different friend experience than our older one. Our oldest child she's probably the kindest, but she had a problem keeping friends, not because she was mean or whatever. It's just that she was born 40 years old, and she was way more mature than anybody else her age, in my opinion. Of course, she had trouble keeping friends. They would all kind of move on. They would be friends with her because she was so kind, and
she was a little bit quirky too.
Yes, but they would go find a more fun friend group because she was too. You say it's too mature, but she was kind of she just wasn't fun and exciting. She was an adult. When in Young Women's, she was kind of an outcast, but the Relief Society ladies loved her. So when
my children loved her too. She's a phenomenal babysitter, and Avery still talks about the piggyback rides.
But when she graduated high school, she turned 18 and went into Relief Society. It was like Taylor Swift walking in to a concert. She thought we called them her old ladies, because they would be like, "Oh my gosh, she's here! We're so happy to see her." Where she was non-existent, really, in Young Women's as a popular force. When she kind of moved up into the more mature crowd, suddenly she was a rock star. It was just kind of a funny transition to see. Not that any of the girls, I think, were intentionally mean to her for the first fight. It's just that she didn't mix in really well. But our twins were very popular. They got involved with a really good group of kids at school in the cross country and volleyball kind of crowd. And those friends didn't have the exact same values, but had very close. And they supported and loved each other. I don't think, they're still friends. They are still all friends today. It's 5 years later, they've all, actually, 5 years later, they've all gone to different schools all around the country. but they're still friends. And these aren't necessarily LDS kids.
Most of them are not.
These are kids who are just really good kids from school, and they still stay in touch with them. And so that was a really good thing that they didn't have, as far as I could tell, any really negative peer pressure coming in. There's probably some that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they pick kids who are going to support their
and they
positions.
always had each other too. That was an advantage I think that they had.
Yeah.
That
They had a built-in best friend.
Yeah, and his friends were her friends, and her friends were his friends, and
Very true.
they were kind of watching out for each other all the time too. So, for good and for bad, sometimes there was some tattling that went with that, but
Yeah.
that's okay too.
It is, I feel like that's important. That was probably really helpful long term.
Yeah.
It might still happen. I don't know.
The girl twin was ratted the boy twin out in about 3 seconds.
Did he come to expect it? Did he start hiding things from her?
Oh no,
He did.
think so.
Yeah, I don't. He was pretty good. He was a pretty solid kid. I don't know if there was a lot there to hide.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it.
I don't know if my mother knew half the things I did.
Right.
I would have lost it. So, anyways,
Yeah.
he was a better kid than I was. That's for sure.
Well, I feel like that's how the generations just keep getting. Mine are better than I was too. Early on in parenting, were there things that you thought were really important, and then as you kind of went on, you were like, maybe that wasn't as big of a deal, and things changed? Or vice versa. Maybe there was something that you didn't think was going to be important that ended up being kind of critical.
For me, making sure that I teach my son kindness was very, very important. And then I needed to show an example to him of that. Once again, having 3 boys, my dad was kind. He was an exceptionally good father, but he wasn't really warm. Not a lot of hugs and stuff. I always knew my dad loved me, was never in question. But I didn't get a lot of hugs or anything like that until I got a little bit older and I started walking to my dad, giving him big hugs. But I wanted to make sure that my son and my daughters knew how much I loved them.
I love that. I'm sure it made a huge impact on them.
Wow. I hope so.
Yeah. No, I'm sure of it. You've got some really, really kind kids. I don't think I ever told you this, but I did that Ragnar years ago, probably like 8 years ago now. And I was on Sam's team, and he was the one who would run after me. And so I'd come in all tired from my run, and he was always so kind and like encouraging. And it was like, this 16-year-old kid is like the sweetest. Like, he was just so nice, because this is my first race ever. Like, I was not fast. I didn't know what I was doing, but he was on cross country, and he was a runner, but he was always just my super slow miles and stuff. He was still cheering me on.
Yeah, he's quite a kid. But and then there's one other thing that I was never abusive to my kids. Didn't really beat them, but they get a smack every once in a while, and I just thought, you gotta give them a little whack. And I wish I wouldn't have done that. And everything ever didn't beating, but it's like a little smack here and there. Come on. Put your head out. And it was interesting. I go back to the little dog thing. It's about 10 years ago, we had a brand new golden retriever puppy. I was very strict on this dog. Like, if it ran, I would call it once, and I would go over there, grab it, and I would give it a pretty hard whack. And that went on a little. And my son, who was 14, no, he was about 12. I saw him do it to the dog. That was a wake-up call. I had to pull my son to the side, and I said, I saw you do that. And I said, I know you've seen me do that. And that's not right. And I said, I promise I will never do that again. If you promise you will never do it again. That really struck home to me, how much he was watching me. I've heard it many times that the biggest influence in a child's life is their same-sex parent. And I was seeing it unfold in ugliness right before me. And guys, cold turkey stopped. He's never, because it was way outside of his character. He was copying me. He never did it again. I've never done it again. And so, my son made me better, because I didn't want him to be like me in that case. And so That's one thing that I kind of pushed, was this corporal punishment side things. I realized that was stupid, totally unnecessary.
Thank you for sharing that. I think as a parent, it takes a lot of humility to like recognize the things that we're doing that maybe aren't having the impact that we want, and to see it and to correct it. I bet that conversation that you had with him that day, like, he still remembers it, and he will remember it his whole life. So I know it started with ugliness or something that you weren't proud of, but I think you took that opportunity in that moment to correct it, and I think it'll turn out much more beneficial than otherwise.
Let's hope somebody can learn from my stupidity.
Well, we've all got stupidity in different ways, so I'm glad you had a chance to like course correct. That's a very sweet story. Thank you. Did you have anything you wanted to add on that, Gail?
When our kids were little, we were definitely in survival mode. At the time, we thought the very best thing was just to always have a specific routine. Feed them, change their diaper, bathe them, whatever, put them in the jammies, put them in their bed, and let them cry it out until they went to sleep. And we kind of differ in opinion on this. And it worked to accomplish what we needed as far as making bedtimes easier and more consistent, because our kids could be wide awake and we could put them in their bed, and then we knew that within a few minutes they would be asleep. My biggest regret through doing that is that I wish I held my babies more, because they don't stay babies very long. So that's one thing I would change. I think that it was good for us at the time. It was good for establishing sleep patterns for our kids, but we missed out on some loving time with them.
Funny story.
Yeah.
We had that baby monitor next to our bed, and our kids were upstairs. And I'm a lighter sleeper than she is. And so I could hear the babies kind of grunting and rolling. I could hear the buildup of the wave. She slept so hard I could roll over and turn off the baby alarm, the baby monitor. And of course, she woke up. And so the kids might be upstairs crying, and I could hear them, but I would wait them out much longer than she would. And then she'd wake up, and I'd be back asleep, and the monitor would be off. And
I'd be mad.
She was never really happy about it. But
darn it.
I got a little bit more sleep, so it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there are definitely things that we do to survive in the moment that maybe we would have done differently, but maybe you guys needed that time and that structure. And I think it goes along with the consistency that we were talking about earlier. Like, having routines is good, but man, it is so true that these stages just go by so fast. Like I'm still, our youngest is 8, and I still mourn the baby and toddler phase. And I know I'm just like romanticizing it. I know there are hard times and sleepless nights and things, but it's like, man, if I could just snuggle them like a little baby again.
But it's funny because even as adults, our kids still kind of, they'll lay over and put their head in my lap and ask me to scratch their back and stuff. But the negative thing to the way we did do it is that if we were ever outside of our routine, if we weren't home at bedtime,
you just crash. A nuclear cloud.
We had a disaster because they couldn't go to sleep. They were so used to being in their bed and putting themselves to sleep in their bed that if I tried to, rock them to sleep or something somewhere else, couldn't do it. So
got it. Pros and cons.
There was a downside to the way we did it, but when we were home, it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What surprised you the most about raising children? Like, is there something that you expected initially and it was just completely different? Or that's kind of a broad question, but was there something that surprised you?
For me, there's a couple of things. How much fun it was. I'm a big fun guy. I like to just go out and laugh and roll around and, throw sticks at each other. I was kind of raised just, let's go have fun. My kids are kind of like built-in playmates for me. I've never progressed past 12 per one important lady in my life.
I'm sorry, Gail.
But it was just so much fun. That's what I just thought it was great. And then how my kids forced me to have adventures.
They forced you.
I'm a big kind of outdoors guy. I will, if I could, I'd walk into the mountains and come back once every 6 years for a new knife or something. But I got into just the grind of a working dad trying to feed his family. Is just, get up, go to work and so forth. And, Gail and I always wanted to make sure that we gave them adventures. And so we would, we didn't go to resorts for vacation. We would go camping. How we did it was her family's in California. My family was in Missouri or Michigan, just depending on what time of year it was. And so for the first couple of years of our marriage, we would spend like 1 year at her parents and then 1 year at my parents. We'd take our kids to see the grandkids or the grandparents. And then once we decided, like, we haven't done anything, just our family. And so we got on a different rotation. We formed our family. Listen, 1 year we're going to go to California, see her parents. 1 year we're going to go to Michigan because it was in the summertime when my parents would go up to northern Michigan. And then the third year, we wouldn't go see either of them. We would go do a family vacation. And those inevitably took the position. We would go these big epic road trips and camping.
We didn't have a lot of money, so
no. We had a car that ran and we could afford a big tent. And so we toured Colorado and West Texas, and we toured up to the Grand Tetons and
all of Utah
and
South Dakota,
northern Michigan. And we went camping in northern Michigan. And what's the big one up in Glacier? One of the Glacier National. We would road trip and go to Glacier, and those were the best times. But it was our drive to give our kids experiences rather than vacations, if you would. No cell phones, no TV. Heck, most of the time there was no showers, and we would sit around the campfire and read stories. It's very 1950-ish, but it was wonderful. And I was telling the kids we were going to do this podcast with you. And I was driving with them just the other day in the car where they were in town for a wedding. And I was like, what do you guys remember? And the kids were like, camping. Camping was the best. It was the best experience. It was the most fun. That is something that they just loved. It's something that we love doing. She can cook anything over a campfire.
Can't cook anything in the kitchen, but I can.
She's amazing.
I might need recipes. Yeah.
And so we took our kids camping. And funny thing was I was a scoutmaster for I don't know how many years when we were first married. And so I took all of these things that I learned in scouting and took them and did them with my family as far as cooking outside. This is, how to use maps and how to do all this stuff. And we just had a great time. And so that drive to give our kids different experiences kind of fulfilled the adventurous side of what I was.
But one of the fun ways we did it, we have an old coffee table that's got a glass top on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd go get a new map of the United States. I'd go down to AAA and get a new map, and we'd slide it up in glass, and we'd get dry erase markers out. And we'd start this, I don't know, sometime after Christmas, I think. Yeah. And we'd have the kids find places on the map where they wanted to go. It eventually led to them just mapping out what our 2-week summer road trip would be and all the places that we wanted to hit. And to be honest, they found places that I didn't know about that we went. And I don't know if we ever went to the same place twice unless it happened to be on the same route, but we would average about 5,000 miles every summer. But our kids, I think by the time they graduated from high school, they'd been to nearly 40 states by doing that. And they know kids that had never left Texas or had only left Texas by airplane to go to Europe or something.
Or would go to some beach resort, all-inclusive beach resort down in the Caribbean.
Different experience.
It was different, but it was, I think one trip, we went all the way to California. We hit like 13 national parks and monuments and stuff. Or somebody wants to join us here. Sorry, he wants. This is Bruce.
No, that's fine. Hi, Bruce. This is part of why I was so excited to talk with you guys, because I love that is the culture of your family, is going on these adventures and doing this together. Because you're not just camping, but I know you've done like difficult hikes and paddling, like kayaking and stuff. And I love that you took your kids to do hard things and you did them together. Like, can you talk about that some more?
Well, the other thing too that it taught them was a lot of life skills. I didn't cook the meals camping. I facilitated cooking of the meals, and the kids had to do it, and they learned to build fires, and they learned to, hang their clothes out on a clothesline if they were wet, and just a lot of skills that you don't necessarily learn in your house, or you learn them, but maybe in a different way.
Or maybe you don't learn them. A lot of people I feel like don't learn those valuable skills as much anymore. So what a gift to your children.
The adventure still continues. I have a group of friends that I go on a big adventure trip with every year. It started, 6 or 7 years ago, where we take the kids and we've backpacked across Michigan, backpacked in New Mexico,
Canoed in Minnesota.
Canoed the boundary waters in Minnesota. Next year, we're going to be canoeing the Allagash Waterway in northern Maine. And she doesn't come along with them some of these times. She's got some battle wounds on her, but it's also a good time just for dad time. And I don't discriminate. Daughters, sons, let's go get dirty. Come on. And it's been great. And so, it's something that has become
a tradition,
a family tradition now. And the kids are like, yeah, I'm in. Half it's now is, as long as I pay for it. But
right.
it's a great time. And it's been eye-opening to see them kind of mature through it. And now they're a little bigger, 23. So I load my son up and we go backpacking here, carry this. And my daughter's got a husband now. One of my daughters.
Yes, does he come?
Oh yeah, he comes. Yeah, his dad's part of the team. And so he comes. He's been coming on my trips with me since before they were even dating.
Okay.
I set a permanent residence inside this young man's head. But yeah, he's great.
And we're getting a daughter-in-law that will be coming next summer.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's kind of like the process of elimination. You have to survive a Rouse trip before you can marry into the family.
It's really interesting. That has been very important for our kids, especially our son, as he's, has dated various girls. He's settled on the one that can put up with his adventuring and being grimy, and
she can hang with him.
And she's a very girly girl, but she enjoys that adventure too. So
good. So when you originally started these trips, it was once every 3 years, but it sounds like, when did it start becoming like every summer that you did it?
After they graduated high school.
It kind of evolved because we would turn our trips to go see our family into our adventures. So on our way out to California, we would hit the national parks along the way and camp and do all of that. When they were little, it was more, let's just get to our destination type thing. But I think by the time the twins were 4 or 5, we were camping along the way.
Awesome. I joke that Chris and I, we find no joy in the journey. It's just how fast can we get where we're going. But
you want to hear another funny story?
Of course.
We were road tripping from Dallas. Just as far as expediting the journey goes, we were road tripping from Dallas to Michigan to go.
It's a lot of funny stories.
My family. And so we were going to take 3 days. 3 days.
Because we were taking the dog too. And this is when the twins weren't even 1.
Yeah,
and
we were road tripping, and we stayed the first night in Memphis.
Yeah, we were going to break it up into 3 8-hour days. We figured that was max we could do with 2 babies.
It's still ambitious.
We drive to Memphis the first day, no problem. We get a hotel. And then the second day, we're like, okay, we're going to drive to like Northern Ohio or something.
Yeah.
We're going to go somewhere. And so I was like, okay, we can do it. And so we get in the car
from here. We stopped for a dinner break, probably about 5:30, 6 o'clock. Then I said, okay, let's find a hotel. It's time. And we put in a long day. Tomorrow will be an easy day. And he says, no, everybody's doing really good. Let's go for another hour. Let's just go another hour before we stop for a hotel.
And by an hour, I mean 8.
Right. We're just going to keep going.
2 out of 3 of our kids could fall asleep in their car seat. And one of the babies could not.
Well, she would fall asleep, but every time you drive into a town that had street lights, it would wake her up.
She's awake.
Every time.
So I ended up we had taken one seat out of our van so that the dog could lay on the floor back there. But I ended up going in the back and sitting on the floor with the dog. And we had this, it's a little TV that had a VCR in it that plugged into the cigarette lighter of the car.
This was 25 years ago.
And the only thing that would keep the one that wouldn't sleep from screaming was Little People videos. Fisher Price Little People.
It was horrible. So it was about a 10-minute tape?
Oh, we had a couple of them, but I was holding this TV so she could see it because she was facing backwards, and I had to, and we pull into the cabin about 3 a.m. and put the kids down, and of course 7 a.m. they wake up. But it took about 4 days to get back on a schedule.
So I learned, just stop.
Just stop.
Because I had the Little People video in my head.
Burned in your head.
For 16 hours. I can't, dude. Even today, I hear the music to the Little People and I just get hives. I can't do it anymore. So.
PTSD.
I did learn, stop the car. Don't, it's good to put down some miles in a road trip, but don't be afraid of just.
Now they can do it. Last weekend, he did it with the kids. They rolled in at 3 a.m. to a wedding in Houston last weekend. He and the kids did.
They can handle it.
They can handle it.
A little more versatile now.
Parents out there listening, just get a hotel.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, what advice do you guys have to young families? It seems like this really has just been such a huge bonding opportunity and growth opportunity for your family. What advice do you have for young families to try to start something like this? Maybe they don't feel like they have a lot of time. Maybe they don't feel like they have a lot of money or skills. Like, there's a lot that goes into camping. What advice could you give a young family considering this?
We just kind of figured it out as we went along. We started out a little bit basic, but I had grown up tent camping all the time. You trailer camped more. When our kids were little, one time we didn't go far. We went down to Garner State Park, just southwest Texas, and just stayed in a little cabin. So still got the experience of being in the woods and playing in a river and that, but with the benefit of being in a cabin. So
I would say your first time out will be an unmitigated disaster.
Oh, yeah.
Just expect it.
Just expect it.
Yeah.
And don't quit after the first time it's done. And the reason Gail and I took our oldest camping before.
I was pregnant.
Yeah, you're probably
with
pregnant.
the twins.
Oh my goodness.
And we were going camping with my family in Missouri. And we had this cheap tent and we got a little
We had the porta crib.
Had a porta crib inside it. And so Gail and I, we're going to, I think
It'll be fine.
This is the first time we went, wasn't it?
Because she was so good about going to sleep.
She
We
was
put her
great.
in bed and she'd go to sleep.
And so we put her in there and actually she was around cousins and she was just amped up.
Wired.
And so she was just till the wee hours of the morning. And we were trying to entertain her and shush her and let her do whatever. Finally, the tent's zipped up. It's padded. It's got tents and it's got sleeping pads and sleeping bags all around it. We just took her out of her crib and let her just roll around that thing like a ping pong ball. And we just went to sleep.
And she went to sleep
She
on
just
top of us.
curled up on top of us, went to sleep.
You just gonna lay
And
there.
so so we kind of learned, don't fight it too much. She's going to be fine. There's nothing that's going to hurt her. And so your first time through, it'll be a disaster. Just get used to it. The second thing I would do if I was going to is camp with my kids in the backyard, just for a night. Just little jaunts where they think it's something that's really, really cool. And then you can start dialing up the adventure mode a little bit. Hey, let's go.
I think all of
to the
our
local
kids had
park.
campouts in our yard here. Some for their birthday parties did a camp out in the backyard. And
Cool.
Camping, just little outings. We did letterboxing with our kids.
it's like geocaching.
It's like geocaching for kids.
Oh, cool.
They hide the stamps, and each kid had a book of stamps, and you would find the letterbox, and you would stamp it. And they had their own little letterbox backpack that we would always take out, and we would go on little adventures around
town.
And they
Into
hide
parks
them.
and stuff.
They hide them. They're all around us. You just got to go up to the letterboxing stuff. But that kind of got them outdoors and finding stuff. And I think we still have the little
I have
stamp
them. I
books
know right where they are. Yeah.
all over.
I love
that
it.
really got them out and got them excited about being outside, it doesn't have to be camping. Just find something that your family likes, and you don't have to go out and buy big, expensive stuff. I've taught my kids to camp with a tarp and a sleeping bag. You just throw a piece of plastic out, lay on it, and go to sleep. See, nothing happens to you.
I love it.
It's fine. It's not expensive. Just go find whatever you want to do as a family. I have found, though, that kids, their mind turns on when they're outside. It turns off when they come inside. And so
Definitely.
that was I think something that we learned early, and then we really pushed to get them out. And we didn't have a video game in our house until they were like 10 or 12.
We surprised them one Christmas. They didn't ever really ask for a video game, but one Christmas we thought, oh, they're old enough, we'll get it. And we bought an Xbox Connect, and our rule was that they could only do the games that they were up and moving in. So, Just Dance or whatever. I think they played it for a day or two that Christmas, and then it gets played maybe once or twice a year.
Maybe.
Oh.
Hardly ever. And so I think that was, it was kind of intentional that we didn't want a lot of video games around, but it turned out in my mind to be a huge blessing for our children, that they weren't obsessed or consumed by them, that they had to have them.
Cell phones come along soon enough.
Yeah.
You don't need to add the.
Yeah, now their mind is consumed with TikTok and Instagram. So
Sadly, we haven't crossed that bridge into social media yet. Our oldest just got a phone earlier this year, so it's another battle. But
and if we're going to go that route with phones, our kids weren't allowed to take them into their bedrooms. We had a little charging station, and when they went to bed at night, the phone was on the charging station. And if they were on their phone, it was out in the living room or the kitchen. It was not, they weren't allowed to take it into their rooms.
No TVs, no computers, no phones in your bedroom.
I love it. Those are our rules as well. Where was your charging station?
We've got just this little hallway between our kitchen and our living room, just right there.
Okay.
Kind of,
I
always
love
got
it.
that one junk shelf where you just throw your keys and wallet and stuff on.
Yes.
When you come in the house, that's where it is.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I have taken up a lot of your time, but before we end, I wanted to ask you guys, we've been polling all of our interviewees about nature versus nurture and assigning a percentage to how much of children and parenting is nature versus nurture. So you guys can think about that, and your answers can be different from each other. That usually has turned out to be how it goes, but how much is nature and how much is nurture?
In what context? As far as like who they turn out to be as adults?
Yes.
All three of our kids are just naturally good. They're rule followers. So we never really even had to have a lot of rules, because one thing we taught them was you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even if nobody else is doing it. And so they were genuinely good, but their personalities is where the challenge came, because some were more easygoing than others. One was definitely more high strung and needed some coaching, very passionate and driven. And as long as it was in the right direction, it was a good thing. And so with that particular child, it was all we could do. All we wanted to do was make sure we didn't break that spirit in her, but we could channel it in the right direction. So man, she is a force. But when she would get her mind set on something, if it wasn't the right thing, it was a challenge to try and redirect her. And but now she can kind of do it on her own, and it's a very powerful, useful skill that she has. But that took a lot of nurture. Nature. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think that Gail said in related to that individual, that child, it was how do you teach her to control her without breaking her? That was something my mother actually told me, because one of the things I learned is that I couldn't force her to do things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tried really hard. It caused a lot of conflict between the two of us. But my mother always said, listen, this strong will of hers is going to serve her very well throughout her life. Don't break it. Don't break her will. Don't give her trauma. And that has always sat in the back of my head, what my mother said to me. And I think we did a pretty good job because my mom was inside my head. But I actually think a lot of it's nature, but you can magnify the good parts of what they have through nurture. And so I think that's kind of how I look at it, is take all the gifts that God has given them or challenges that they have, whether it be a strong will or, some people are just rebel against authority. We're blessed that we didn't have that, but some people do have that. And it's how then you have to use nurture to try to enhance or modify the nature of the child so that they can have the best chance of being successful and happy in their life. At the end of the day, all you want for your kids is for them to be happy and healthy. That's nothing is worse than you're only as happy as your saddest child. And,
I haven't heard that.
But that's
I like it.
Is. You're only as happy as your saddest child. And so all you want is for them to be as happy as they can. You look at them and you say, listen, I've got some years of experience. And this is my inner dialogue. I need to help child X because they're going to struggle socially in this manner because of whatever nature trait that they have. And so how do you, then you use nurture to kind of file down the sharp points, the rough areas. How do you try to really cover up help them change their nature? That's the gospel's about change. It's not about, just accepting who you are in all your flaws. It's about helping those flaws become assets to you. And so we struggle a lot, but we use nurture to help them set them up for success. And so so I can't put a percentage on it, but I do think they both are incredibly important. I've known a lot of really good people who were damaged by very poor nurturing. And I'm sure there's a lot of very good people out there right now who are who they are today because they were nurtured a specific way. If it wasn't for that, they'd probably be in a lot worse shape. I put myself in that category. That, I had really good parents that helped me out. And hopefully that's been an asset to my children.
I can't imagine it hurt. I love it. I've heard from both of you about how you kind of have tailor-made your parenting to each individual child, like recognizing the nature, the personality that came already ingrained in them and making adjustments to your parenting to cater to them. And that's your nurture side. And I love how you've been able to bring them together. And I think that you guys have done an incredible job. And I thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything you wanted to add before we end the call? Or
I'll say one thing to all the dads out there. Find something that is your thing with each of your children. Your thing. And it can be anything. But I really want each of my children to walk away and say, I loved it when my dad did this. And with my oldest, it's, we would walk together. I'd go to her athletic events. She liked to hold my hand in church. She's a very touchy one. She likes to snuggle. And I give her extra big hugs because I know that's what she loves. And with my son, it's, let's go outdoors. Let's go camping. I took him his first father-son camp out when he was, I think, 2 or 3. He slept on my head after getting heaped up on s'mores. In his first s'more, it looked like an angel appearing to him. I still remember it. But so that's it. And then with my middle daughter, who probably I've struggled with that relationship the most, it's Hallmark movies. I watch Hallmark movies with her.
I love it. Real men watch Hallmark movies.
Totally. I got a shirt. I got a Hallmark watching shirt. And even this year, I call her and say, hey, there's the Halloween Hallmark movie. It's Friday. We're watching it. And I recorded it so she could watch it on her phone out in Utah.
Sweet.
And I watched it here. But it's find something that's specific to you and your child's relationship. Because there's nothing can replace the dad.
And along those lines too, I think if you can somehow get each one of your children to think that they're the favorite, then you've won. If they all think that they're the favorite, and I think it is just they're individuals, and he has his things with them. Mine are not quite as cut and dry, but I've got things with each of them that's just between me and them, and that is important because
They still all call mom. Like when they need something, they call mom. If they have problems, car's not working, or hey, Dad, I'm going in for an interview. Can you look at my resume? They call me. I'm like the administrative assistant. But for the CEO, it's all the emotional support.
I love it. You guys make a great team.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.